The cold steel of the gun pressed against Elena Vale's temple wasn't what terrified her most. It was the quiet voice of the man she'd been sent to destroy, asking if she still believed he was the monster they'd told her he was. Blood dripped from a wound on her shoulder, evidence files scattered at their feet, and outside the locked study door, footsteps closed in from both sides. 1 month ago, she'd walked into Lucian Moretti's mansion as an undercover agent with a simple mission: expose the crime lord and bring him down. Now trapped between the criminals hunting them and the corrupt officials who'd sent her, Elena realized the real betrayal had been orchestrated long before she ever stepped foot on this estate. If you want to know how a shy maid became the only person standing between a mafia boss and total destruction, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Elena Vale's hands trembled as she stood before the iron gates of the Moretti estate, her small suitcase feeling heavier with each passing second. The mansion loomed ahead through morning fog, all dark stone and sharp angles, more prison than home. She'd rehearsed her cover story 100 times during the 2-hour bus ride, but now, staring at the reality of what she'd agreed to do, the words felt thin and unconvincing even to herself. "You getting in or what?" The security guard's voice cut through her thoughts. He was heavy-set, with eyes that registered her presence without really seeing her, the perfect response to someone who needed to be invisible. "Yes, sorry." Elena forced her feet forward, through the checkpoint where another guard waved a scanner over her bag with mechanical efficiency. Nobody smiled. Nobody welcomed her. The silence felt deliberate, like the mansion itself had rules about warmth. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, met her in the service entrance. She was a small woman, maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, and a mouth that seemed engineered to never curve upward. "You're late," Mrs. Chen said, though Elena had arrived exactly on time. "I'm sorry, don't apologize. Do better." Mrs. Chen's eyes traveled over Elena's cheap dress, her worn shoes, the suitcase held together with duct tape. "You're here because we're short-staffed, not because you're special. The moment you become more trouble than you're worth, you're gone. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am. Your room is on the 3rd floor east wing, staff quarters. You'll share it with 2 other maids, Anna and Sophie. They'll show you the routines." Mrs. Chen started walking without checking if Elena followed. "Mr. Moretti values 3 things above all else: discretion, efficiency, and loyalty. Disappoint him on any of those counts and you won't get a second chance." Elena's mind raced as they moved through a maze of service corridors. Her FBI handler, Agent Morrison, had briefed her extensively on Lucian Moretti, 34 years old, took over his father's organization at 26, suspected of everything from money laundering to contract killings, but never successfully prosecuted. The file had included grainy surveillance photos showing a tall man with dark hair and darker eyes, always surrounded by armed guards, always unreachable. Morrison had been clear. "We need someone inside, someone he won't suspect. You fit the profile, young, desperate, no criminal record. Get hired, gain access to his private spaces, find evidence we can actually use in court." What Morrison hadn't mentioned was that 5 undercover operations before hers had ended with agents either disappearing or resurfacing months later, refusing to talk about what they'd seen. Elena had only learned about that part 3 days ago, from a friend in records who'd pulled the classified files. She'd almost backed out. But then the hospital had called about her father's latest round of treatments, and the insurance company had denied the claim, and the number on the bill had looked like a prison sentence. So here she was, walking into a different kind of prison, hoping she'd survive long enough to pay off the debt, and maybe, just maybe, do something that mattered. "This is the main kitchen," Mrs. Chen was saying, gesturing to an industrial space where 3 people in white uniforms worked in synchronized silence. "You'll assist with meal service and room preparation. Mr. Moretti entertains frequently. Every detail must be perfect." They passed through rooms that seemed designed to intimidate, floors so polished Elena could see her reflection, artwork that probably cost more than her childhood home, furniture that looked expensive to even breathe near. Everything was immaculate. Everything felt watched. "Does Mr. Moretti have family here?" Elena asked, trying to sound naturally curious rather than investigative. Mrs. Chen's expression hardened. "Questions like that will get you fired before lunch. Your staff. You clean? You serve. You forget everything you see and hear. That's the job. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Stop apologizing. Mrs. Chen stopped at a narrow staircase. Learn to be invisible. The maids who last are the ones Mr. Moretti never notices. She paused, her eyes meeting Elena's with something that might have been concern or might have been warning. The ones he does notice don't tend to stick around. The third-floor hallway smelled like industrial cleaner and something else. Fear, maybe, though Elena knew that was impossible to actually smell. Her room turned out to be barely larger than a closet, with 3 narrow beds and a single window overlooking the service courtyard. One bed was made with military precision, the other looked like someone had been sleeping there recently, and the third, her bed, had been stripped to the bare mattress. Linen's in the closet, Mrs. Chen said. Uniform too. You start in 30 minutes. Anna will come get you. Then she was gone, and Elena was alone in a space so small she could touch both walls with her arms outstretched. She sat on the bare mattress and let herself have exactly 60 seconds of terror. Her phone was back in the locker Morrison had insisted she use. No personal devices inside the estate. The wire she was supposed to wear was taped to her ribs, inactive until she could establish a regular enough routine that its signal wouldn't be noticed by whatever counter-surveillance the estate employed. She was completely on her own. The door opened without a knock. A young woman, maybe 25, stuck her head in. You're the new girl? Elena. Anna. She had an accent Elena couldn't place, dark eyes that had seen too much, and arms marked with small burn scars. You know how to make a bed that won't get you screamed at? I think so. You don't know anything yet. Anna stepped inside, pulling sheets from the closet with practiced efficiency. Watch. For the next 20 minutes, Anna demonstrated the Moretti standard for everything from hospital corners to pillow placement. She didn't speak much beyond instructions, but Elena noticed her hands never stopped moving and her eyes kept flicking to the door. You scared of something? Elena asked quietly. Anna's hands stilled. You should be too. This isn't a regular household, Elena. The rules here are different. Different how? You'll see. Anna finished the bed and stepped back. Get changed. Sophie's sick, so it's just us today. You'll be following me, doing exactly what I do, not improvising, not showing initiative, just copy and stay quiet. The uniform fit poorly, too loose in the waist, too tight in the shoulders, but Elena didn't complain. She followed Anna back down the service stairs through corridors she'd already forgotten, into a world of whispered instructions and invisible boundaries. Their first task was refreshing the library. Anna pushed open heavy oak doors to reveal a room that seemed designed for a different century. Floor-to-ceiling books, leather furniture, a fireplace large enough to stand in. Weak morning light filtered through windows that overlooked manicured gardens. Dust. Don't disturb, Anna whispered. Don't open anything. Don't read anything. Don't move anything more than an inch. Some of these books are worth more than we'll make in 10 years. They worked in silence for a while, Anna handling the higher shelves while Elena focused on the lower ones. The books were beautiful, leather-bound, many of them clearly old. Elena's hands itched to open them, to search for the hidden safes or concealed documents Morrison had insisted must be somewhere in the house. I heard he killed someone in this room, Anna said suddenly. Elena looked up. What? 3 years ago, a business partner who tried to cheat him. Anna's voice was barely audible. They say Mr. Moretti shot him right there by the fireplace. The staff had to clean up the blood. That's just a rumor, right? Anna met her eyes. Everything here is just a rumor until it happens to you. They moved to the dining room next, a space that could seat 30 people beneath crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than Elena's father's entire medical debt. Anna showed her how to set a table, where each fork went, the precise distance between plate and glass, the angle of the napkin fold. He notices everything, Anna said. Once, a new girl put the salad fork on the wrong side. Mrs. Chen made her reset the entire table 17 times. The girl quit that night. That seems excessive. Nothing here is excessive. It's all exactly as much as it needs to be. Anna finished a place setting and studied it with an artist's critical eye. You'll understand once you see him. Mr. Moretti? He's not like other people. There's something about him that makes you want to either run or stay very, very still. Elena's pulse quickened. Have you talked to him? Once. I was dusting his study and didn't hear him come in. He asked if I was new. I said yes. He said, "Don't steal from me and you'll be fine." That was the whole conversation. Did you? Steal, I mean. Anna's expression hardened. Would I still be here if I had? They worked through the morning, room after room, each one more lavish than the last. Elena tried to memorize the layout, to note which doors were locked and which rooms seemed to generate the most nervous energy from Anna. The security presence was constant but subtle. Cameras in corners, guards who appeared and disappeared like ghosts, a sense that every conversation was being recorded. Lunch was served in a small staff cafeteria in the basement. Anna introduced her to the other household workers, a cook named Marco who never smiled, two groundskeepers who ate quickly and left, a driver who sat alone reading a newspaper in Spanish. Everyone was polite. Nobody was friendly. "You don't make friends here," Anna explained as they ate something that might have been chicken. "People come and go too fast. Better to keep distance." What happened to the last girl? The one whose bed I took? Anna's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She made a mistake. What kind of mistake? The kind you don't make twice. Anna stood abruptly. We have the East Wing this afternoon. Finish up. The East Wing was quieter, more private. These were guest rooms, Anna explained, for business associates and family members who visited occasionally. Each room was themed, one in dark blues and grays, another in cream and gold, a third that looked like it belonged in a Moroccan palace. Does Mr. Moretti have family? Elena asked, remembering Mrs. Chen's reaction to the same question. Anna hesitated. His father died 8 years ago. His mother's been gone longer than that. There's a sister somewhere, but she doesn't come around. Why not? Some families fall apart. This one exploded. They were in the blue-gray room when Elena heard footsteps in the hallway. Not the quiet steps of staff, but heavier, more deliberate. Anna's entire body tensed. Keep working, she whispered. Don't look up. Elena focused on the dresser she'd been dusting, her heart hammering so hard she was sure whoever was approaching could hear it. The footsteps paused at the doorway. She could feel eyes on her back, assessing, calculating. New staff? The voice was male, deep, with the kind of quiet authority that made the question sound like a test. Yes, sir, Anna answered, her voice smaller than Elena had ever heard it. Started this morning. What's your name? Elena's hand stilled on the dresser. She turned slowly, keeping her eyes appropriately lowered, and came face to face with Lucian Moretti. The surveillance photos hadn't prepared her. He was taller than she'd expected, maybe 6'2", with the kind of lean build that suggested violence was always an option. Dark hair, shorter on the sides, fell across a forehead marked with a thin scar. His suit probably cost more than her car had. But it was his eyes that stopped her, gray like storm clouds, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that made her forget the practice story she was supposed to tell. Elena Vall, sir. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. You're nervous. It wasn't a question. Elena forced herself to meet his gaze for exactly 2 seconds before looking down again. First day, sir. I want to do well. Why? The question caught her off guard. Sir, why do you want to do well? Most people in your position just want to survive. He stepped into the room, and Elena became acutely aware that Anna had somehow disappeared, leaving them alone. But you said you want to do well. That's different. Elena's mind raced. The truth that her father was dying and she needed money desperately was too vulnerable. The cover story Morrison had crafted, that she was saving for college, felt suddenly hollow under this man's scrutiny. So she split the difference. My father's sick. The medical bills are more than I can manage. I need this job to keep him alive. Lucian studied her for a long moment. That's honest. Is that a problem? Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. Most people lie to me. They think it's safer. Is it? No, but it's what they do anyway. He moved to the window, looking out over the gardens. Elena Vale, the employment agency said you have no experience in private service. No, sir. I was working in a diner before this. Why leave? The pay wasn't enough. And you think working for me will be enough? Elena chose her words carefully. I think working for you will be demanding, but Mrs. Chen said the pay reflects that. Mrs. Chen talks too much. He turned back to face her, and Elena saw something in his expression shift. You're going to hear stories about me, about this house. about what I do and who I am. Most of them are exaggerated. Some of them are completely false." He paused. "A few of them are true. I'm not here to judge, sir. I'm here to work. Everyone judges. The question is whether they're smart enough to keep their judgments to themselves." He started toward the door, then stopped. "Don't disappoint me, Elena. The people who disappoint me tend to regret it." Then he was gone, and Elena was alone in the blue-gray room, her hands shaking so badly she had to sit down on the freshly made bed. Anna reappeared minutes later, her face pale. "What did he say to you?" "He asked why I wanted to do well." "And?" "I told him the truth. About my father." Anna sank onto the bed beside her. "That was either very brave or very stupid. I can't tell which yet." They finished the East Wing in silence. Elena's mind kept replaying the conversation, analyzing every word, every pause. Lucian Moretti was dangerous, that much was clear. But he was also more complex than the file Morrison had shown her suggested. The way he'd called out her nervousness, the way he'd commented on honesty, the way he'd looked at her like he was solving an equation rather than addressing a servant. He was testing her. The question was, for what? That evening, after the dinner service was complete and the kitchen had been scrubbed spotless, Elena finally made it back to her small room. Sophie had returned, a rail-thin girl with red-rimmed eyes who barely acknowledged Elena's presence before collapsing into bed. Anna was still downstairs somewhere. Elena lay on her narrow mattress, staring at the ceiling, and tried to organize her thoughts into something coherent enough to report to Morrison. But the truth was, she had nothing concrete yet. No evidence. No smoking gun. Just a strange conversation with a man who seemed to see right through her careful mask. Her door opened. Mrs. Chen stood in the hallway, backlit by fluorescent light. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you in his office." 5 minutes. Elena's stomach dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" "If you had, you'd already be gone." Mrs. Chen's expression was unreadable. "Don't keep him waiting." The walk to Lucian's office felt like a march to execution. 2 security guards flanked the door but didn't stop her when she knocked. "Come in." His office was smaller than she'd expected, lined with monitors showing security feeds from around the estate. Lucian sat behind a desk covered in papers, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. "Sit." He gestured to a chair across from him. Elena sat, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. "You've worked here for 1 day," Lucian said, "and you've already made an impression." "I hope a good one, sir." "Anna says you ask a lot of questions." Elena's throat tightened. "I'm trying to learn the routines. Marco says you barely touched your lunch." "I wasn't very hungry." "And Mrs. Chen says you apologized too much." Elena said nothing. There was no good response to that. Lucian leaned back in his chair, studying her with those unsettling gray eyes. "I'm going to tell you something, Elena, and I want you to listen carefully. This house operates on trust, not friendship, not loyalty earned over years. Trust. Either I trust you or I don't." "How do I earn your trust, sir?" "You don't earn it. You either have it or you don't." He picked up his glass, swirled the amber liquid. "Right now, I don't know what to make of you. You're too honest to be a good liar, but not honest enough to tell me why you're really here." Elena's pulse hammered. "I told you why I'm here. My father. Your father's medical bills are real. I checked. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, St. Mary's Hospital, insurance denied the last 3 claims." Lucian's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was reading a grocery list. "But that's not why you're here. That's the motivation. I'm asking about the purpose." "I don't understand." "Yes, you do." He set down the glass and leaned forward. "You're smart, Elena. Smart enough to be terrified right now, but still holding it together. Smart enough to tell partial truths instead of obvious lies. Smart enough to know that walking into this house was dangerous, but doing it anyway." His eyes never left hers. "So I'm going to ask you one time, and I suggest you think very carefully about your answer. Who sent you?" The room felt airless. Elena's mind spun through options, calculations, possibilities. Deny everything and risk his clearly well-founded suspicion. Confess and probably die. Or, "I'm going to tell you something," she said quietly, "and you're probably going to kill me for it." Lucian's expression didn't change. "I'm listening. Nobody sent me, but I did come here for a reason beyond the job." The words felt like stepping off a cliff. My father isn't just sick. He was an accountant. 20 years ago, he worked for a company that turned out to be a front for money laundering. When the FBI raided them, he cooperated, testified, went into witness protection for 3 years. And now he's dying, and the people he testified against have gotten out of prison, and I've been getting calls, threats. Someone knows where we are. Elena's voice cracked, and she let it. This part was true enough to fuel real emotion. I needed to disappear. I needed money. And I needed to learn how people like that operate so I could protect myself and my father if they found us. The silence stretched so long, Elena thought she might shatter. Then Lucian laughed. It was a low, dark sound. That's either the truth or the best lie I've heard in 5 years. It's the truth. Your father testified against the Castellano family. It wasn't a question. Elena nodded. They're brutal, vindictive. If they knew where you were, you'd already be dead. Lucian stood, walked to the window. Which means either you're very good at hiding or someone's protecting you. Which is it? I'm good at hiding. No one's that good. He turned back to face her. But I'll tell you what. I believe that you believe what you just told me. Whether it's the whole truth is something we'll discover together. Elena's legs felt weak. Am I fired? No, you're on probation. He moved back to his desk, picked up a folder. I'm going to have someone look into your story. If it checks out, we'll discuss how I might help with your father's situation. If it doesn't, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. And Elena? He waited until she met his eyes. Whatever you think you know about how people like me operate, forget it. You have no idea what you've walked into. Back in her room, Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd improvised, merged truth with lies, created a story that might buy her time or might get her killed. The wire against her ribs felt like a bomb now. If Lucian really did investigate her story, if he found the connection to the FBI, if Morrison's cover wasn't as solid as he'd promised. Sophie stirred in her bed. You okay? Yeah, just tired. He called you to his office? Yeah. What did he want? Elena thought about Lucian's eyes, the way he'd dissected her story, the strange moment when he'd seemed to decide whether to believe her. I'm not sure yet. The next 3 days passed in a blur of work and paranoia. Elena followed Anna through the daily routines, learned which rooms were off limits and which were merely forbidden, memorized the patterns of the security guards and the schedules of Lucian's meetings. She saw him twice more, once passing in a hallway where he nodded at her without speaking, and once in the dining room where he was meeting with 3 men in expensive suits who looked at the staff like they were furniture. On the 4th day, Mrs. Chen pulled her aside. Mr. Moretti wants to see you. Same office, now. Elena's stomach dropped, but she followed the now familiar path through the mansion's corridors. This time when she knocked, Lucian called for her to enter immediately. He was standing by the window, his back to her. Your father's story checks out. The Castellanos are real. The threats are real. Your witness protection history is real. Relief and terror mixed in Elena's chest. Morrison's cover had held. However, Lucian continued, still not turning around. I also discovered something interesting. Your father's FBI handler was a man named Robert Morrison. Same Morrison who ran operations against my organization 3 years ago. Elena's blood turned to ice. Now, that could be a coincidence. Lucian finally faced her. Morrison handled a lot of cases, but it made me curious, so I looked deeper. And you know what I found? Sir, Your employment application was processed through an agency I've used for years, an agency I trust. But the reference they called, the diner you supposedly worked at, it exists, but they've never heard of you. The room tilted. Elena gripped the chair in front of her. So either you're a very bad liar who got lucky with your father's real history, Lucian said softly, or you're exactly what I thought you were from the moment you walked through my door. What do you think I am? I think you're someone who's in way over her head. He moved closer. I think you took this job because you were desperate, yes, but not just for money. I think someone offered you a deal. They'd help with your father's bills if you'd help them with me. Elena's mind raced. Deny everything? Confess? Run? Am I close? Lucian asked. Close enough, she whispered. Then let me make you a better offer. He sat on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. You can keep working for whoever sent you. Wear whatever wire they gave you. Report whatever they want to hear. And in about 3 months, you'll either end up dead when my people find the concrete evidence, or you'll disappear into witness protection again and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Or you can tell me exactly who sent you, what they want, and what they promised you, and I'll show you something they don't want you to see. Why would you do that? Because the people who sent you aren't the good guys, Elena. They just have better PR. He leaned forward. I know it's a lot to process, so I'm going to give you 24 hours to decide. But understand this. The moment you walk out that door, you're making a choice. Stay quiet, and we continue this dance until one of us breaks. Tell me the truth, and I'll tell you what's really happening here. Elena stood frozen, every instinct screaming different directions. 24 hours, Lucian repeated. Then we'll see who you really are. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay in the darkness, listening to Sophie's uneven breathing and Anna's occasional murmurs, her mind replaying Lucian's words on an endless loop. 24 hours. The deadline felt like a countdown to her own execution, no matter which choice she made. At 3 a.m, she gave up pretending and slipped out of bed. The hallways were dimmer at night, but never truly dark. Security lights glowed at regular intervals, and she knew cameras tracked her movement. She made her way to the small staff bathroom and locked herself inside, then carefully peeled back the tape holding the wire against her ribs. The tiny device felt obscene in her palm. Morrison had promised it was undetectable, that Moretti's people would never find it during a standard sweep. But Lucian had known she was wearing something from the moment he'd seen her. She was sure of it now. The question was why he hadn't taken it from her yet. She thought about activating it, sending out a distress signal that would bring Morrison's team crashing through the gates. But what would she tell them? That Lucian knew she was undercover and had given her a day to decide whose side she was on? Morrison would pull her out immediately, and her father's medical bills would become someone else's problem, meaning they'd become no one's problem at all. Elena stared at her reflection in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes, hair falling out of its ponytail, uniform wrinkled from tossing in bed. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman caught between impossible choices with no good options left. She taped the wire back in place and returned to her room. Morning came too fast. Anna shook her awake at 5:30, same as always, and Elena stumbled through the routine of getting dressed and ready. Her hands moved automatically through the morning tasks, stripping beds, collecting linens, following Anna down to the industrial washers in the basement. But her mind was somewhere else entirely, trying to calculate probabilities and outcomes like her life was a math problem she could solve. You look terrible, Anna said as they loaded the second washer. Didn't sleep much. Because of him? Elena glanced up. Anna's expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes held something like understanding. How long have you worked here? Elena asked. 2 years, longer than most. And in that time, has anyone ever, I don't know, gotten close to him? Earned his trust? Anna's hand stilled on a pillowcase. Why are you asking? Just curious. Curiosity gets you fired here. Or worse. Anna resumed loading the washer, her movements sharp now. But since you asked, no. Mr. Moretti doesn't trust anyone. He tests people, constantly. It's like a game to him, seeing how far they'll go, what they'll do when they think no one's watching. What kind of tests? Anna slammed the washer door closed. The kind that tell him exactly who you are, and once he knows, you're either useful or you're gone. They worked in tense silence after that. Elena's shift dragged on through the morning, dusting the library again, polishing silver in the dining room, helping Marco prep vegetables in the kitchen, even though her hands kept shaking and she nearly sliced her thumb twice. Mrs. Chen watched her with narrowed eyes but said nothing. Lunch came and went. Elena forced down half a sandwich, her stomach too knotted to manage more. 18 hours left, then 16, then 12. At 2 in the afternoon, she was changing linens in one of the guest rooms when she heard voices in the hallway. Male voices, tense and low. She froze, her hand still gripping a fitted sheet. Don't care what your sources say, the timeline's too tight. That was Lucian's voice, clipped and angry in a way she hadn't heard before. We don't have a choice. A second voice, older, with a gravelly quality. If we don't move now, they'll move first. Then let them move. I'm not risking everything on bad intelligence. It's not bad intelligence. It's confirmed. The FBI has someone inside. Elena's breath stopped. "I'm aware," Lucian said, and she could hear the cold smile in his words. "In fact, I'm dealing with it personally." "When?" "Soon. I'm giving her enough rope to hang herself." Footsteps approached the room. Elena's instinct screamed at her to hide, but there was nowhere to go. She kept working on the bed, her movements mechanical, praying they'd walk past. They didn't. Lucian appeared in the doorway with a man Elena didn't recognize. 60s, expensive suit, the kind of face that had seen violence and learned to enjoy it. Both men stopped when they saw her. "Continue," Lucian said, his tone perfectly neutral. Elena nodded and went back to tucking corners, hyper-aware of their eyes on her. The older man leaned close to Lucian and whispered something Elena couldn't catch. Lucian's response was equally quiet, but she saw the older man's expression shift, surprise, then something that looked like approval. "Interesting choice," the older man said, louder now. "Does she know what she's gotten into?" "Not yet," Lucian replied, "but she will." They left. Elena's hands trembled so badly she had to sit down on the half-made bed and force air into her lungs. They knew. Of course they knew. Lucian had been playing with her from the beginning, watching her stumble through her lies, waiting to see what she'd do. The question was whether he'd already decided what to do with her. She finished the room on autopilot and made her way downstairs, her mind racing. She needed to contact Morrison, needed to warn him that her cover was blown. But the wire was one-way communication unless she activated the emergency beacon, and doing that would bring the FBI down on the estate before she could get clear. She'd be caught in the crossfire between whatever Lucian had planned and whatever Morrison's team would do in response. Unless she took Lucian's offer, the thought stopped her cold halfway down the service stairs. What if he was telling the truth? What if the people who'd sent her weren't the heroes of this story? But that was impossible. Lucian Moretti was a criminal. The file had been clear: money laundering, extortion, suspected murders. The FBI didn't fabricate entire cases. They didn't send undercover agents into civilian homes on hunches. Did they? Elena found Anna in the laundry room, folding towels with mechanical precision. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said quietly. "Depends on the question. The people who work here, the ones who've been here a while, do they seem scared of Mr. Moretti or do they seem loyal to him?" Anna's hands paused. "Why does it matter?" "It just does." Anna set down the towel she'd been folding and looked Elena directly in the eye. "I'll tell you what I told the last person who asked me that question. If Mr. Moretti wanted us dead, we'd be dead. If he wanted us gone, we'd be gone. The fact that we're still here, still working, still breathing, that means something. What it means, I can't say, but it means something." "What happened to the person who asked you that before?" "She quit 2 days later, said she couldn't handle not knowing who the real enemy was." "Did she figure it out?" Anna's expression went carefully blank. "I don't know. She disappeared before she could tell me." Elena spent the rest of the afternoon in a fog. She helped serve dinner to Lucian and 3 guests in the formal dining room, all men, all wearing the kind of watches that cost more than cars, all speaking in low tones about shipping routes and transfer schedules. Lucian barely glanced at her, but she felt his awareness like static electricity. After the dinner service, Mrs. Chen dismissed her early. "Mr. Moretti wants you rested," the housekeeper said, her tone suggesting this was unusual. "You have tomorrow morning off." Elena returned to her room to find it empty. Anna and Sophie were both still working. She sat on her bed and tried to think, but exhaustion and fear had turned her thoughts into mud. The door opened. She expected Anna, but instead Lucian stood in the doorway, filling the small space with his presence. "We need to talk," he said. Elena's pulse hammered. "Your 24 hours aren't up yet. I'm aware. But something's changed, and you need to know about it before you make your decision." "What changed?" "Your handler made a mistake." Lucian stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Elena's instincts screamed danger, but she forced herself to stay seated, to appear calm. Approximately 2 hours ago, FBI agent Robert Morrison contacted the Metropolitan Police with a request to coordinate surveillance on my estate. He claimed to have an active informant inside who might be in danger. Elena's stomach dropped. Now, Morrison's smart enough to know that any official request like that creates a paper trail, which means he wanted someone to see it. Specifically, he wanted me to see it. Lucian leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "The question is why. Either he's trying to force my hand, make me act against you so he has cause to raid the estate, or he's trying to force your hand, make you feel like he's abandoning you so you'll turn to me for protection. I don't understand. Yes, you do. You're smart enough to see the game. His gray eyes locked on hers. Morrison sent you in here knowing you'd be exposed, knowing I'd figure out you were FBI. He wanted you compromised from the start. That's insane. Why would he do that? Because a compromised agent is a desperate agent, and desperate people make mistakes. They miss details. They trust the wrong people. Lucian moved closer. He's using you as bait, Elena. The question is whether you're going to let him. Elena stood, needing distance, needing air. You're lying. You're trying to turn me against the FBI, so I'll help you instead. Am I? Lucian pulled out his phone and brought up an email. This is from a friend in the police department. Read it. Elena took the phone with shaking hands. The email was exactly what Lucian had described. Morrison requesting surveillance coordination, mentioning an active informant, suggesting the informant might be in immediate danger. The timestamp was from 2 hours ago. He threw me away, Elena whispered. He made you expendable. There's the difference. Lucian took the phone back. Morrison's playing a longer game. He doesn't need you to succeed. He just needs you to survive long enough to give him probable cause. For what? To bring down this entire estate, to arrest everyone in it, sort out the innocent from the guilty later, and claim a victory for the Bureau. Lucian's voice was hard now. And you know what happens to undercover agents who get caught in the middle of raids like that. Sometimes they get rescued. Sometimes they get killed in the crossfire. Sometimes they just disappear into protective custody and spend the rest of their lives wondering if they back the right side. Elena sank back onto the bed. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then believe this. Lucian crouched in front of her, bringing them eye level. In about 6 hours, I'm going to run a test. I'm going to leave cash in plain sight in 3 different locations around this estate. I'm going to leave jewelry in unlocked drawers. I'm going to create opportunities for every single person who works here to steal from me. Why? Because I need to know who I can trust, and because I need you to see something. He stood. Don't take anything, Elena. No matter how desperate you are, no matter how easy it looks, just do your job and watch what happens to the people who don't. What's going to happen to them? You'll see. He moved to the door. Your 24 hours are almost up. By morning, you'll need to choose, but at least now you'll have all the information. Then he was gone, and Elena was alone with her thoughts and the growing certainty that nothing about this situation was what it seemed. She didn't sleep again that night. At dawn, she followed Anna through their usual morning routine, but everything felt different now. As they worked through the library, Elena noticed a stack of $100 bills sitting on the desk, held down by a paperweight. She saw Anna's eyes flick toward it, then quickly away. Don't, Elena whispered. I wasn't going to, Anna hissed back. In the blue-gray guest room, a diamond bracelet had been left on the dresser. Elena dusted around it carefully, not touching it, barely breathing. Sophie was working that room with them, and Elena watched the other girl's face go pale when she spotted the jewelry. It's a test, Elena said quietly. Don't touch it. Sophie's hands shook. How do you know? I just do. Please, don't touch it. They moved through the house, and everywhere Elena looked, she saw temptation laid out like landmines. Cash in the dining room, a Rolex on the bathroom counter, gold cufflinks in the study. Each time, she warned the other staff members when she could, watched their reactions, saw the moment they understood what was happening. But not everyone got the message. At 10 in the morning, security guards escorted a groundskeeper named Marcus out through the service entrance. His face was bleeding. Elena watched from a window as they put him in a black SUV and drove away. He took $500 from the library, Anna said quietly beside her. Thought no one would notice. What will they do to him? I don't want to know. An hour later, it was one of the kitchen assistants, then a driver. By lunch, 3 people had been removed from the estate, and the remaining staff moved through their duties in terrified silence. Elena felt sick. This was what Lucian had wanted her to see, his control, his power, his willingness to punish anyone who crossed him. It should have confirmed everything Morrison had told her about the kind of man Lucian Moretti was. But instead, she found herself thinking about the test itself. The precision of it, the fairness in a twisted way. Everyone had been given the same opportunity, The same choice. No one had been singled out or framed. They'd condemned themselves. At 2 in the afternoon, Mrs. Chen found her in the hallway. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you. His private study, 3rd floor, west wing." Elena's heart hammered as she made her way through corridors she'd never been allowed to enter before. The west wing was quieter, more isolated. No cameras that she could see, though she knew that didn't mean anything. Lucian's private study was smaller than his office, more personal. Books everywhere, papers scattered across a worn desk, windows overlooking the gardens. He stood by the window, his back to her. "Your 24 hours are up," he said, without turning around. "Have you made your decision?" Elena took a breath. "I need you to tell me something first." "I'm listening." "The people you had removed today, what happened to them?" "They were fired, given a severance payment and a strong recommendation to leave town quickly." He turned to face her. "Did you think I killed them?" "I don't know what to think anymore." "Good. That means you're starting to see the truth." He moved to his desk and picked up a folder. "Elena, I'm going to show you something, and you're going to have a choice to make. You can look at this evidence and decide I'm lying, I'm manipulating you, I'm the monster Morrison told you I was. Or you can look at it and ask yourself why the FBI would send someone like you, someone with no training, no experience, no protection, into a situation this dangerous." He held out the folder. Elena took it with shaking hands and opened it. Inside were documents, financial records, emails. Photographs of Morrison meeting with men she didn't recognize in parking garages and hotel rooms. Bank statements showing deposits that didn't match his FBI salary. "What is this?" she whispered. "Proof that your handler is on someone's payroll, and it isn't the federal government's." Lucian's voice was gentle now, almost sympathetic. "Morrison's been running his own game for years. He uses undercover operations to gather intelligence, then sells that information to the highest bidder. Sometimes that's my competitors. Sometimes that's foreign governments. Sometimes it's just whoever pays best." Elena's hands trembled. "You're lying." "I wish I was. It would make this simpler." He pulled out another document. "This is a wire transfer from Morrison's account to a shell company in the Caymans. Same shell company that funded the hit on your father last month." The room tilted. "What? The threats you've been getting? They're not from the Castellanos. They're from Morrison's people. He needed you desperate enough to take this job. Needed you scared enough to believe anything he told you." Lucian's expression was hard. "He's been setting you up from the beginning, Elena. And when you're no longer useful, he'll eliminate you the same way he's planning to eliminate your father." Elena sank into a chair, the folder falling from her numb fingers. "I don't believe you." "Then activate your wire. Call Morrison right now. Tell him you want to meet. See if he agrees. See if he shows up alone." Lucian leaned against the desk. "Or better yet, ask him why he requested that surveillance coordination. Ask him why he flagged you as being in danger when the safest thing for an undercover operation is silence." "He was trying to protect me. He was trying to provoke me into acting against you so he'd have justification for a raid. And when that raid happens, do you really think he's going to make sure you survive it?" Elena's mind spun. Everything Lucian was saying sounded insane, like a conspiracy theory designed to manipulate her. But the documents looked real. The bank statements, the wire transfers, the photographs. They all looked real. "I need time to think," she whispered. "You're out of time." Lucian's voice was firm, but not cruel. "Morrison's planning his raid for tonight, midnight, maybe later. He's going to claim he received intelligence that you were in imminent danger. His team will breach the estate, there'll be gunfire, chaos. And in that chaos, you'll either survive or you won't." "How do you know this?" "Because I have people inside the FBI too, and because Morrison's predictable. He's run this exact play 3 times before." Lucian pulled out his phone and showed her a text message. "This is from my source. Confirms the raid timing. Confirms Morrison's planning to eliminate any witnesses who can tie him to his side business." Elena stared at the message. It could be faked. All of it could be faked. But the knot of fear in her stomach told her it wasn't. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "I want you to help me expose him. Morrison's corrupted more than just himself. He's got 3 other agents on his payroll, plus contacts in local police and probably federal prosecution. If we can prove what he's doing, we can bring down the whole network. And if I say no, Then I'll make sure you survive tonight's raid, get you and your father into actual protective custody, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you backed the right side. He met her eyes. But those people Morrison's working with, they'll still be out there, still corrupt, still destroying lives. Elena stood on shaking legs. I need to make a call. To Morrison? To the hospital, to check on my father. Lucian studied her for a long moment, then nodded and handed her a phone. It's secure. They can't trace it. Elena dialed the number with trembling fingers. The nurse who answered knew her voice. Oh, Elena, honey, I was hoping you'd call. Your father's been asking for you. Is he okay? He's stable, but we need to talk about his care plan. His doctor tried to reach you earlier, but your phone went straight to voicemail. What did the doctor say? A pause. Maybe you should come in. Some of the decisions need to be made in person. Elena's throat tightened. Can I talk to him? My father? He's sleeping right now. The pain medication keeps him pretty drowsy. But, Elena, there's something else. A man came by earlier asking questions about you, said he was FBI, showed credentials. The staff didn't tell him anything, but he seemed very interested in your father's visitor logs. Elena's blood ran cold. What did he look like? 50s, gray hair, expensive suit, very polite, very insistent. Not Morrison, one of his people. If he comes back, don't tell him anything, please. Honey, are you in some kind of trouble? I don't know, but I need you to trust me. If anyone asks about me or my father, you haven't heard from me, okay? Okay, but Elena, see, I have to go. Please, just watch out for him. Elena ended the call and handed the phone back to Lucian. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it steady. They went after him, she whispered. They actually went after my father. Morrison's covering his bases. If your father dies, you're alone. Easier to control. Lucian's voice was gentle. I'm sorry, Elena. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Elena felt something inside her break and reform into something harder. What do you need me to do? Lucian gestured for Elena to sit back down, his expression shifting into something focused and strategic. First, we need to secure your father. Morrison's people won't move on him directly. Not yet, but they'll keep watching. I have contacts at St. Mary's, security personnel I trust. They can make sure no one gets near him without authorization. Why would you help him? Elena's voice came out raw. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Because Morrison's been a problem for me for 3 years, and you just became the key to solving it. Lucian pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. And because your father doesn't deserve to die for his daughter's mistakes or Morrison's corruption. Simple as that. Elena wanted to argue that she hadn't made mistakes, that she'd been trying to do the right thing, but the words stuck in her throat. She had made mistakes. Trusting Morrison. Believing the FBI wouldn't send her into danger without proper backup. Thinking she could play both sides and come out clean. What happens tonight? She asked instead. Morrison's team will breach the estate around midnight under the pretense of extracting you from immediate danger. They'll have warrants, probably fabricated, but warrants nonetheless. There will be gunfire because my security team won't just roll over, and in the chaos, Morrison will make sure certain evidence disappears and certain witnesses don't make it out alive. Lucian's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. You'll be caught in the crossfire unless we position you somewhere specific. Where? My father's old study. 3rd floor, east corner. It's reinforced, bulletproof glass, steel door, security independent from the main house system. Morrison doesn't know about it because it's not on any official blueprints. He met her eyes. You'll be safe there, and you'll have a clear view of how everything unfolds. I don't want to just watch. If Morrison's as corrupt as you say, if he's really threatening my father, then I want to help stop him. You are helping by staying alive and being a witness. Lucian leaned forward. Morrison's going to claim this raid was necessary, that he had credible intelligence of imminent danger. But if you survive and testify that he manufactured that danger, that he sent you in knowing you'd be exposed, that he threatened your father, that's the thread we pull to unravel everything else. And if no one believes me, if they think I'm just a compromised agent trying to save herself, then we use the other evidence. The financial records, the wire transfers, the photographs. But your testimony makes it personal, makes it real. He stood and walked to the window. Morrison's smart, but he's arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable because he's been getting away with this for years. We're going to prove him wrong. Elena's mind spun through implications and consequences. If she did this, if she really committed to exposing Morrison, there was no going back. The FBI would disown her. Her career in law enforcement, the whole reason she'd agreed to this operation in the first place, would be finished. But if she didn't do it, Morrison would keep destroying lives, and her father would remain a target. I need to see him, she said quietly. My father, before tonight, in case you don't make it. Lucian finished the thought she couldn't. I'll arrange it, but it has to be quick, and it has to be carefully managed. Morrison's people are watching the hospital. How do we get past them? We don't. We bring him here. Elena's head snapped up. What? No, he's too sick to move. The doctor said he needs round-the-clock care, which my medical staff can provide. I have a fully equipped medical suite in the West Wing. It's not ideal, but it's safer than leaving him exposed at St. Mary's. Lucian's expression softened slightly. Elena, if Morrison's people decide he's a liability, he won't survive the night. Here I can protect him. You can see him. And when this is over, he goes back to the hospital with armed guards who actually work for you, not Morrison. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that accepting help from Lucian Moretti was just trading one dangerous situation for another. But Elena was out of options, out of allies, and out of time. Okay, she whispered. Bring him here. Lucian made 3 phone calls in quick succession, his voice clipped and authoritative. Elena caught fragments: medical transport, security detail, discreet entry through the service gate. Within minutes, he'd set machinery in motion that would uproot her father from his hospital bed and deliver him into the heart of a crime lord's estate. It'll take about 90 minutes, Lucian said, pocketing his phone. In the meantime, we need to prepare you for tonight. Prepare me how? Morrison's going to ask you questions when his team extracts you. He'll want to know what you learned, what you saw, whether you compromised the operation. Your answers need to be convincing enough that he doesn't suspect you've flipped, but vague enough that you don't give him anything useful. Elena rubbed her temples. I don't know if I can pull that off. I'm not trained for this kind of thing. You've been pulling it off for days. You convinced my staff you were just a desperate girl looking for work. You convinced me, at least initially, that you were only here for your father. Lucian's tone was almost approving. You're better at deception than you think. You just need to trust your instincts. My instincts told me to trust Morrison in the first place. No, they didn't. Your desperation told you to trust him. There's a difference. He moved closer, his gray eyes intent. What did your gut say when you first met Morrison, when he laid out this operation? Elena thought back to that meeting in the anonymous FBI office. Morrison's practiced smile, his assurances that she'd be protected and supported. It said something was off, that he was too smooth, too eager to recruit someone with no experience. Exactly, but you ignored that because you needed the money, and he offered a solution. Lucian's voice wasn't judgmental, just observational. Tonight, when Morrison questions you, listen to that instinct. If something feels wrong, it probably is. A knock on the door interrupted them. One of Lucian's security guards entered, a burly man with a scar across his jaw. The package is en route, he said. ETA 70 minutes. Medical team is prepping the West Suite now. Good. Increase perimeter security, standard protocols. And Marcus? No one gets close to the East Study tonight. I don't care who they claim to be. Understood. The guard's eyes flicked to Elena. What about her? She stays with me until her father arrives. Then she has access to both him and the East Study. Anyone who interferes answers to me directly. The guard nodded and left. Elena felt the weight of what she'd stepped into settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. Lucian wasn't just offering protection, he was offering sanctuary. But sanctuary came with strings, and she didn't fully understand what those strings were yet. Why are you really doing this? She asked. Don't tell me it's just about Morrison. There has to be more. Lucian was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he moved to a cabinet on the far wall and pulled out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. My father, he said, pouring amber liquid into both glasses, spent 30 years building an empire. not the criminal organization Morrison's file describes, that came later, when the legitimate businesses got strangled by corruption. Politicians on the take, cops demanding protection money, federal agents running their own side deals. He handed Elena a glass. My father tried to fight it clean. Hired lawyers, filed complaints, went through proper channels. You know what happened? Elena shook her head. They destroyed him, froze his assets, arrested him on fabricated charges, made sure he died in a federal prison before his trial even started. Lucian's voice was flat, emotionless, in a way that suggested deep wells of buried rage. I was 26 years old, trying to save what was left of his businesses, when I realized the system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. The corruption wasn't a bug, it was the feature. So you became what they accused your father of being. I became what I needed to become to survive. And then I found my father's journals. He took a drink. Turns out, before he died, he'd been documenting everything, every bribe, every threat, every dirty deal, names, dates, amounts. He'd hidden the evidence, hoping someone would find it and finish what he started. Elena's mind raced. You have proof of corruption inside the FBI? Inside the FBI, the police, the district attorney's office, 3 federal judges, and 2 city council members. My father spent the last year of his life being the most meticulous criminal investigator you've ever seen, except he was investigating the people who were supposed to uphold the law. Lucian's smile was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? The crime lord's father was actually working for justice. Why haven't you used it? Why sit on evidence like that? Because the moment I release it, I become the primary target of every corrupt official who might be named in those documents. They'll kill me, destroy the evidence, and make sure the truth never comes out. He set down his glass. I've been waiting for the right moment, the right leverage, someone on the inside who could validate what my father documented. Understanding dawned cold and clear. Someone like me, someone exactly like you. An FBI agent who can testify that Morrison sent her into danger, that he threatened her father, that he's running his own criminal enterprise under the cover of federal authority. Lucian's eyes locked on hers. Your testimony gives my father's evidence credibility. Together, we can bring down the entire network. Elena's hand shook as she raised the glass to her lips. The whiskey burned, but it was a welcome distraction from the magnitude of what Lucian was proposing. If we do this, if we actually expose all of them, what happens to you? You've still committed crimes. You've still run this organization. I'll disappear. New identity, new life, somewhere far from here. It's already arranged. His voice was steady. The estate, the businesses, the assets, they'll be liquidated and the proceeds will go to victims of the corruption my father documented. Restitution, I suppose, or penance. And if I say no, if I decide I can't trust you either, then I make sure you and your father survive tonight, and you disappear too. New identities for both of you, enough money to cover his medical care, and you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Lucian's expression was serious, but Morrison's network stays intact. The corruption continues, and eventually, they find you anyway. Elena closed her eyes. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was a path that had been narrowing since the moment she'd stepped through the estate gates, and now she'd reached the point where only one direction remained. Show me, she said. Show me your father's evidence. I need to see it before I commit to anything. Lucian nodded and moved to a painting on the wall, a dark landscape that looked expensive and depressing. He pressed something behind the frame, and the painting swung outward to reveal a safe. His fingers moved quickly over the keypad, and the door clicked open. Inside were 3 leather journals and a slim external hard drive. The journals are handwritten records, dates, meetings, amounts exchanged. My father's handwriting verified by multiple experts. Lucian pulled them out carefully, like they were sacred texts. The hard drive contains digital copies of documents, recorded conversations, photographs, everything organized by person and by crime. He handed Elena the first journal. She opened it to a random page and saw neat handwriting documenting a meeting between someone identified as FBI-SAC Morrison and a name she recognized from organized crime reports. The entry included a date from 4 years ago, a location, and a dollar amount that made her stomach turn. Morrison's been dirty for at least 4 years, she said quietly. Longer. That's just when my father started documenting it. Lucian watched her face as she read. Keep going. Elena flipped through pages, her horror growing with each entry. Morrison wasn't just corrupt. He was running protection for multiple criminal organizations, selling FBI intelligence to the highest bidder, and orchestrating hits on witnesses who might expose him. Her name appeared in the most recent entries dated just weeks before Morrison had recruited her. "He was planning this," she whispered. "He identified me specifically because of my father's history and my financial situation. He manufactured the perfect desperate candidate. And when you served your purpose, he'd eliminate you and move on to the next one." Lucian's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry, Elena. I know this isn't easy to see." A sharp knock interrupted them. The same security guard from before stuck his head in. "The package is here. Medical team confirms stable condition." Elena's heart leapt. "My father is being settled in the West Suite now. Give them 10 minutes to get him comfortable, then you can see him." Lucian placed the journals back in the safe. "Go. Take whatever time you need. I'll make sure you're not disturbed." Elena practically ran through the corridors, following Marcus's directions to the West Wing. The medical suite turned out to be a fully equipped hospital room. Monitors, IV stands, a proper bed with rails. And in that bed, looking smaller and more fragile than she'd ever seen him, was her father. "Dad?" She was at his side instantly, taking his hand. His skin felt paper-thin, cool to the touch. His eyes opened slowly. "Elena? What? Where am I?" "Somewhere safe. You're somewhere safe now." "The hospital said..." He coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made Elena's chest ache. "They said someone from the FBI was asking about you." "I know, Dad. I know. But it's handled now. You're protected." He struggled to focus on her face. "You're in trouble. I can see it. Baby, what did you get yourself into?" Elena felt tears threatening and forced them back. "Remember when I was little and I asked you why you testified against those men? Why you put us in witness protection even though it meant giving up everything? You were 8, too young to understand. You said some battles are worth fighting even when you know you might lose, even when it costs you everything." She squeezed his hand. "I understand now, Dad. I finally understand." His expression crumpled. "No. No, Elena, whatever you're thinking of doing, I'm finishing what you started. I'm making sure the people who hurt you, who hurt others, who corrupted everything they touched, I'm making sure they face consequences." Her voice was steady now, certain. "And I'm doing it the right way, with evidence, with the truth. The truth gets people killed, baby. I learned that the hard way." "Then I'll be careful, but I won't walk away. Not from this." She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. "I need you to rest now. The doctors here are good. They'll take care of you. And when this is over, when it's really over, we'll figure out what comes next, together." Her father's eyes were wet. "You're so much braver than I ever was. I learned from the best." She stayed with him until he drifted into medicated sleep, then made her way back to Lucian's study. The estate felt different now, less like a prison and more like a fortress. She understood the security measures, the careful protocols, the paranoia that seemed to infuse every corridor. When you were fighting corruption from the inside, trust became a luxury you couldn't afford. Lucian was on the phone when she entered, speaking rapid Italian to someone. He ended the call when he saw her. "Your father's settled?" "Yes. Thank you for this. For all of it." "Don't thank me yet. The hard part's still coming." He checked his watch. 6 hours until Morrison's raid. We need to use that time to prepare. For the next several hours, Lucian walked Elena through the layout of the East Study, the security protocols, the escape routes if things went wrong. He showed her how to access the camera feeds from inside the panic room, how to record everything on a separate server that Morrison's people couldn't reach. "When the raid starts, you need to look terrified," Lucian explained. "Morrison's team will breach your room first. That's their cover story, that they're extracting you from immediate danger. They'll find you hiding in the study. You play along, you're scared, confused, grateful they came for you. And then Morrison will separate you from the others for debriefing. That's when he'll ask what you learned. You tell him you saw nothing concrete, suspicious meetings, careful security, but nothing that would hold up in court. You play the failed operative who tried her best but came up empty. He'll know I'm lying. Of course he will, but he won't be able to prove it, and he'll need you alive to maintain the fiction that this raid was legitimate." Lucian handed her a phone, different from the one she'd used earlier, smaller. This is a direct line to my attorney. The moment you're clear of Morrison, you call that number. My lawyer will meet you with federal prosecutors who aren't on Morrison's payroll. You give them everything, your testimony, my father's journals, the hard drive, everything. What about you? Where will you be? Making sure Morrison's attention stays on me and not on you. His smile was grim. Don't worry, I'm very good at being a distraction. Elena wanted to ask what that meant, wanted to push back against a plan that seemed designed to sacrifice him, but she knew he wouldn't change course. This was what he'd been preparing for, the culmination of years of work, the completion of his father's mission. There's one more thing, Lucian said. He pulled out a small flash drive. This is a copy of everything. The journals have been scanned, the hard drive duplicated. You keep this on you at all times. If something happens to the originals, if Morrison somehow gets to them, this backup ensures the evidence survives. Elena took the flash drive. It was tiny, almost weightless, and somehow that made it feel more precious. This small piece of plastic and silicon held the power to topple an empire of corruption. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Lucian met her eyes. But don't let it paralyze you. When the moment comes to act, trust yourself. You're stronger than you think. The hours crawled by. Elena tried to rest but couldn't. She checked on her father twice more, watched him sleep, memorized the sound of the monitors tracking his vital signs. Anna found her in the hallway around 10 and pulled her into a tight hug without saying anything. Somehow, the other woman knew something major was about to happen. At 11:30, Lucian came to collect her. It's time. Morrison's team is 15 minutes out. They walked together to the east study. The room looked exactly as Lucian had described. Reinforced walls, security monitors, a clear view of the front approach. He showed her one more time how to lock the door from inside, how to access the recordings, how to use the emergency exit if necessary. Remember, he said, his hand on the door. Scared and confused. You're a failed operative, not a turncoat. Don't give them any reason to suspect otherwise. Lucian. Elena caught his arm before he could leave. Why do I feel like this is goodbye? His expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. Because it probably is. After tonight, I disappear. New identity, new life. We won't see each other again. That seems wrong somehow. After everything. That's how it has to be. He squeezed her shoulder once, gently. But for what it's worth, Elena Vale, you reminded me that not everyone in this world is corrupt, that some people still fight for what's right, even when it costs them everything. That matters more than you know. Then he was gone, and Elena was alone in the study with her fear and her determination and the weight of everything that was about to happen. She didn't have to wait long. At 11:47, the security monitors showed vehicles approaching. Black SUVs, moving fast, lights off. Elena's heart hammered as she watched armed figures pour out and take positions around the estate. This was it. This was really happening. Gunfire erupted somewhere below. Elena flinched at the sound, her training, what little she had, screaming at her to take cover. But she forced herself to stay at the monitors, to watch as Morrison's team breached the main entrance with tactical precision. They moved through the estate like they'd studied the layout, and Elena realized with a chill that they probably had. Morrison had been planning this for weeks, maybe months, every detail calculated, every contingency planned for. The door to the study rattled. Someone was trying to get in. Elena Vale, FBI, open the door! She recognized Morrison's voice. Taking a shaky breath, Elena unlocked the door and stepped back, her hands raised, her expression terrified. Morrison entered with 3 agents behind him, all armed, all scanning the room for threats. His eyes locked on Elena. Are you hurt? Did they hurt you? No, what's happening? Why are you here? She let her voice shake, let genuine fear bleed through. We received intelligence that you were in immediate danger. We're extracting you. Morrison's gaze swept the room, taking in the security monitors, the reinforced door. What is this place? I don't know. Mr. Moretti told me to come here when the shooting started. He said I'd be safe. Elena hugged herself. I was so scared. I thought he was going to kill me. You're safe now. Morrison holstered his weapon and moved closer. We need to get you out of here. My team will debrief you at a secure location. What about the others? The staff? They're being processed. Right now my concern is you. His hand closed around her arm, firm but not painful. Let's go. Elena let him guide her from the study, down corridors now filled with armed agents and security personnel in flex cuffs. She saw Anna being led away, her face pale but composed. Saw Mrs. Chen arguing with an agent in rapid Mandarin. Saw the estate she'd come to know transformed into a war zone. Morrison led her to one of the SUVs and put her in the back seat. An agent she didn't recognize got in beside her. Morrison took the front passenger seat. Drive, he ordered. As they pulled away from the estate, Elena looked back through the rear window. Smoke rose from somewhere on the east side. Lights blazed from every window. And somewhere in that chaos, Lucian was playing his part, making sure Morrison's attention stayed exactly where it needed to be. Tell me what you learned, Morrison said without turning around. Everything. Start from the beginning. Elena took a breath and began to lie. I didn't learn anything useful, Elena said, keeping her voice small and defeated. Moretti kept me at a distance. I cleaned rooms, served meals, stayed invisible like the other staff. I never got close to his office, never saw any meetings that mattered. Morrison was silent for a long moment, watching her in the rearview mirror. You were there for almost a week. You're telling me you saw nothing? I saw security everywhere. Cameras, guards, locked doors. I saw him once or twice, but we barely spoke. He barely looked at me. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. I tried, Agent Morrison. I really tried. But I was just a maid. Nobody important enough to matter. Did he ever question you? Ask why you were there? Elena's pulse jumped, but she kept her expression steady. Once. The first day. He asked about my father, about why I needed the job. I told him the truth, that I needed money for medical bills. He seemed to accept it. And he never pressed further, never seemed suspicious. If he was suspicious, he never showed it. Maybe I wasn't interesting enough to worry about. Elena let bitterness creep into her voice. I'm sorry I failed. I know you were counting on me. Morrison turned to look at her directly now, his eyes hard. Your father received a visit today, at the hospital. Did you know about that? Elena's stomach clenched, but she forced confusion onto her face. What? No. Who visited him? That's what I'm trying to determine. The hospital staff said it was someone claiming to be FBI, but we didn't send anyone. Morrison's tone was casual, but Elena heard the trap in it. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? How would I know? I've been at the estate this whole time. I couldn't even call out. They took my phone during the security check on my first day. The lie came easily now, smoothed by fear and necessity. Is my father okay? Did something happen to him? He's fine. For now. Morrison held her gaze a beat longer, then turned back to face forward. We're taking you to a safe house for debriefing. Standard protocol after an extraction. You'll stay there until we determine whether Moretti's organization poses any ongoing threat to you. The agent beside her shifted, and Elena felt the press of a gun against her ribs. Not pointed at her exactly, but close enough to be a message. She was a prisoner, not a rescued operative. Morrison had already decided she was compromised. The safe house turned out to be a nondescript ranch-style building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Morrison led her inside while the other agents secured the perimeter. The interior was sparse, basic furniture, minimal decoration, the kind of place designed for temporary occupation and easy abandonment. Sit, Morrison said, gesturing to a chair at the kitchen table. Elena sat. Her mouth was dry, her heart hammering so hard she was sure Morrison could see it. The flash drive in her pocket felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Morrison pulled out a chair across from her and sat down slowly, his movements deliberate. Let's try this again, Elena, and this time, I want the truth. I told you the truth. You told me a story. There's a difference. He leaned forward. I've been doing this a long time. I know when an operative is holding back, so I'm going to ask you one more time. What did you learn at the Moretti estate? Elena met his eyes and saw something there that made her blood run cold. He already knew. Somehow, he already knew she'd flipped. I learned that you're a liar, she said quietly. I learned that you sent me in there knowing I'd be exposed, that you've been threatening my father to keep me compliant, that everything you told me about this operation was designed to make me expendable. Morrison's expression didn't change. Who told you that? Moretti? Does it matter? It's true, isn't it? What's true is that you compromised a federal investigation by making deals with a known criminal. Morrison's voice was calm, almost gentle. What's true is that you're facing charges of obstruction, conspiracy, and probably treason by the time I'm done documenting your betrayal. Except you won't document anything, because doing that would require explaining why you sent an untrained civilian into a dangerous operation with no backup. Elena's fear was transforming into anger now, hot and clarifying. It would require explaining why you flagged me as being in danger when the safest thing for an undercover operation is silence. It would require answering questions about your own financial records. Morrison went very still. What did you say? I know about the wire transfers, the shell companies, the meetings with criminals you're supposed to be investigating. Elena pulled the flash drive from her pocket and set it on the table between them. I know everything, Morrison, and so do other people, people you can't touch. For the first time, Morrison's composure cracked. His hand moved toward his gun. I wouldn't, Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt. That flash drive is a copy. The originals are already with federal prosecutors who aren't on your payroll. You shoot me, and you just confirm everything I've told them. Morrison's hand froze. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to test that theory? Elena stood slowly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to let me walk out of here. You're going to let my father receive the medical care he needs without any interference. And you're going to pray that when the investigation into your activities concludes, they show you more mercy than you showed the people you destroyed. You have no idea what you've done. Morrison's voice was low and dangerous. The people I work with, they don't forgive this kind of betrayal. Then I guess we have that in common. Elena moved toward the door, every muscle tensed for Morrison to stop her. But he just sat there, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. She was almost to the door when he spoke again. Your father dies first. You know that, right? Before they come for you, they'll make sure you watch him die. Elena's hand froze on the doorknob. If anything happens to my father, that recording of you threatening him goes straight to every major news outlet in the country. You'll be finished before you can even run. What recording? Elena pulled out the phone Lucian had given her and held it up. The screen showed a timer. It had been recording since Morrison first put her in the SUV. Every word, every threat, everything documented. Morrison lunged from his chair, but Elena was already moving. She yanked open the door and ran, her feet pounding on pavement, her lungs burning. Behind her, she heard Morrison shouting orders, heard the other agents scrambling to respond. She didn't look back. She just ran. 2 blocks away, a car pulled up beside her, a sedan with tinted windows. The passenger door opened. Get in! It was Marcus, Lucian's security chief. Elena dove into the car. Marcus hit the gas before she'd even closed the door, tires squealing as they accelerated away from the safe house. Where's Lucian? Elena gasped, struggling to catch her breath. Making sure Morrison's people are too busy to chase you. Marcus took a hard turn, then another, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. He said to get you somewhere secure and keep you there until the lawyers give the all clear. Where's secure? Somewhere Morrison doesn't know about. Somewhere his people can't reach. Marcus's jaw was tight. Boss is finishing what his father started. Tonight ends with either Morrison in custody or all of us dead. No middle ground. They drove for 20 minutes, taking a winding route through industrial areas and empty lots. Finally, Marcus pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a building Elena didn't recognize. Stay close to me, he said. They took an elevator to the 8th floor. The hallway was empty, sterile, more like a hospital than an apartment building. Marcus led her to a door at the end and unlocked it with a key card. Inside was a small apartment, clean, functional, anonymous. And sitting on the couch, looking pale but alive, was her father. Dad! Elena rushed to him, wrapping her arms around him carefully. When? Mr. Moretti's people moved me an hour ago. Said you'd be coming soon, that I needed to be somewhere safe. Her father's hand shook as he held her. Elena, what's happening? Who are these people? I'll explain everything, I promise. But right now, I just need you to trust me. Can you do that? Her father studied her face, and Elena saw the moment he decided to believe her. Always, baby. Always. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll be outside. You need anything? You call me. He handed Elena a phone. Another burner. That's a direct line. Don't use it for anything else." Then they were alone. Elena helped her father get comfortable, made sure his portable IV was flowing correctly, and tried to figure out where to even begin explaining. "Start at the beginning," her father said softly, "and don't leave anything out." So Elena told him everything: Morrison's recruitment, the undercover operation, Lucian's suspicions, the evidence of corruption, the choice she'd made to expose it all. Her father listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through shock, anger, fear, and finally something that looked like pride. "You did the right thing," he said when she finished. "It was dangerous and probably foolish, but it was right. I learned from you. I testified against criminals. You're taking down corrupt federal agents. That's a whole different level of dangerous." He took her hand. "But I'm proud of you. Your mother would be too." Elena felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "I'm scared, Dad. What if this doesn't work? What if Morrison destroys the evidence? What if no one believes me? Then we run. We disappear. We start over somewhere new." Her father squeezed her hand. "But I don't think that's going to happen. You're stronger than you think, Elena, and you've got people helping you who know how to fight this kind of battle." A thought struck her. "Dad, when you testified against the Castellanos, did anyone try to help you? Anyone from the other side?" Her father was quiet for a moment. "There was one man. Never learned his name. He made sure certain evidence reached the prosecutors, made sure witnesses stayed alive long enough to testify. I always wondered who he was and why he helped. What if it was Lucian's father? What if he'd been documenting corruption even back then? Then maybe there's more honor in that family than anyone realizes." Her father's expression grew distant. "The world isn't as simple as good guys and bad guys, Elena. Sometimes the people fighting for justice are the ones everyone calls criminals, and sometimes the criminals wear badges and hide behind the law." They sat in silence for a while, Elena's head on her father's shoulder, both of them processing everything that had happened and everything that was still to come. The phone Marcus had given her buzzed. Elena checked the screen, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Prosecutors are ready. Marcus will bring you to the meeting. Come alone. This is your moment." Elena showed the message to her father. "Go," he said. "Finish this." "What if something happens? What if Morrison? I've got 2 of Moretti's people outside this door and enough medical equipment to keep me alive until you get back. I'll be fine." He kissed her forehead. "Go be brave one more time." Marcus was waiting in the hallway. "Car's ready. We need to move fast. Morrison's people are searching for you, and they're not being subtle about it." The drive took 30 minutes, heading downtown toward the federal courthouse. Marcus pulled into a private garage and led Elena through a maze of corridors to a conference room on the 12th floor. Inside, 3 people waited. 2 were prosecutors, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a younger man who looked like he'd been awake for 3 days straight. The third was Lucian. Elena's breath caught. He looked different, harder somehow, like he'd crossed a line and couldn't come back. His suit was rumpled, his jaw shadowed with stubble, and his eyes held exhaustion that went bone deep. "Ms. Vale," the female prosecutor said, standing. "I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Karen Richardson. This is my colleague, David Chen. We need to hear your story." For the next 2 hours, Elena talked. She described Morrison's recruitment, the operation he designed, the threats against her father. She detailed her time at the estate, her conversations with Lucian, the moment she'd realized Morrison was corrupt. She showed them the recording from the safe house, played Morrison's threats about her father dying. Richardson and Chen took notes, asked questions, circled back to specific details. They were thorough and professional, and Elena could see them building a case in real time. "And the physical evidence?" Richardson asked. "The journals and hard drive Mr. Moretti mentioned?" Lucian pulled a leather satchel from beside his chair and set it on the table. "Everything's here. 3 journals spanning 8 years of documented corruption, plus a hard drive containing scanned documents, recordings, and photographs. My father compiled it before he died. I've kept it safe until we had someone who could validate it." Chen opened the satchel and pulled out the first journal. His eyes widened as he read. This is extensive. If even half of this is verifiable." "It's all verifiable," Lucian said quietly. "My father was meticulous. Every entry has supporting documentation on the hard drive. Names, dates, amounts. Everything you need to bring charges." Richardson looked between Elena and Lucian. You understand what you're both risking here. Morrison has connections throughout the Bureau. The people named in these journals have power, resources, and motivation to make you disappear. I understand, Elena said. So do I, Lucian added. Mr. Moretti, your cooperation in this matter is appreciated, but you're aware that you're facing significant charges yourself? Money laundering, racketeering, potentially more depending on what our investigation uncovers? I'm aware. My attorney is prepared to negotiate a plea agreement in exchange for my testimony and complete cooperation. Lucian's voice was steady. But I want immunity for Ms. Vale. She's a victim of Morrison's corruption, not a co-conspirator. That's not really your call to make, Chen said. Then make it yours. She was an untrained civilian sent into a dangerous situation by a corrupt agent. She cooperated with me only after discovering Morrison had threatened her father. Everything she did was in service of exposing corruption. Lucian's eyes were hard. She deserves protection, not prosecution. Richardson studied Elena for a long moment. Is that accurate, Ms. Vale? You only cooperated with Mr. Moretti after learning about Morrison's corruption? Elena thought about lying, about smoothing over the complicated truth. But she'd committed to honesty, and backing down now would invalidate everything she was trying to do. Not exactly, she said. I started cooperating with Lucian because I was scared and desperate and my father was in danger. I didn't know for certain that Morrison was corrupt. I just knew something felt wrong. The evidence Lucian showed me confirmed what my instincts had been telling me all along. So you made a choice based on incomplete information? I made a choice based on who I thought was more likely to kill me and my father. Morrison had already proven he was willing to threaten us. Lucian was offering protection and a way to expose the truth. Elena met Richardson's eyes. Maybe that was naive. Maybe it was stupid. But it was the choice I made, and I stand by it. Richardson and Chen exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them. We'll recommend immunity, Richardson said finally, but you'll need to testify. Grand jury, trial if it goes that far, probably depositions for civil suits. Your life is going to be complicated for the next year or two. I can handle complicated. We'll also arrange protective custody for you and your father. New identities if necessary. Morrison's network is extensive, and they will come after you. I understand. Chen looked at Lucian. And you? What's your plan? I disappear. New identity, new country, new life. It's already arranged. Lucian's voice was matter-of-fact. My attorney will handle the legal proceedings in my absence. I'm not interested in dragging this out or negotiating a better deal. I just want to make sure Morrison and everyone connected to him faces consequences. That's an unusual position for someone facing federal charges. I'm an unusual person. Lucian stood. Are we done here? I have arrangements to finalize. Richardson nodded. For now. But Mr. Moretti, don't leave the country until we've completed the initial investigation. We may need you for additional questioning. I'll be available for the next 72 hours. After that, I'm gone. He moved toward the door, and Elena found herself following him into the hallway. Wait, she called. Lucian turned, his expression unreadable. What happens now? To you, I mean. Where will you go? Somewhere quiet, somewhere far from all of this. He smiled slightly. Don't worry about me, Elena. I've been planning my exit for years. I'll be fine. Will I ever see you again? No, that's the point of disappearing. His voice softened. But for what it's worth, meeting you reminded me why my father thought justice was worth fighting for. You did a brave thing. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Elena felt tears threatening. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You just would have had a harder time of it. Lucian reached out and squeezed her shoulder once, gently. Take care of your father. Build a new life. And maybe, somewhere down the line, think about me occasionally and hope I'm doing the same. I will. Then he was walking away, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor, and Elena knew she was watching him disappear even before he actually left. She returned to the conference room. Richardson and Chen were deep in conversation over the journals, already building their case. Ms. Vale, Richardson said without looking up, we'll need you to remain available for the next several weeks. Depositions start Monday. Can you do that? Yes, but I need to make sure my father receives proper medical care. He's dying, and I won't let him die in some safe house while I'm testifying. We'll arrange for him to be transferred to a private medical facility under assumed names. Full care, round the clock, whatever he needs. Richardson finally looked up. You're doing the right thing here. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are. Then why does it feel like I'm betraying everyone? Because corruption protects itself by making exposure feel like betrayal. It makes you question your own judgment, your own morality. Richardson's expression was kind. But you're not the one who broke the rules, Ms. Vale. You're just the one brave enough to point out that they were broken. Marcus drove Elena back to the apartment where her father waited. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed too beautiful for how Elena felt. Boss is gone, Marcus said quietly. Left about an hour ago. Didn't say where. He tell you anything about what comes next? Just to make sure you and your father stay safe until the prosecutors are done with you. After that, you're on your own. Marcus pulled up to the apartment building. For what it's worth, working for Mr. Moretti was the most honest job I ever had. He paid fair, protected his people, only hurt those who deserved it. World's going to miss him, whether it knows it or not. Elena found her father awake, watching the sunrise through the apartment window. It's done, she said, sinking onto the couch beside him. Morrison's going down. All of them are. And you? Are you okay? Elena thought about that question. Was she okay? She'd betrayed the FBI, made deals with a crime lord, put herself and her father in danger, and committed to testifying against some of the most powerful people in law enforcement. Her career was destroyed, her reputation would be shredded, and she'd spend years looking over her shoulder waiting for Morrison's allies to exact revenge. But she'd also exposed corruption that had been festering for years. She'd finished what her father started and what Lucien's father had documented. She'd chosen truth over comfort, justice over safety. I'm okay, she said finally. I'm scared and exhausted and not sure what comes next, but I'm okay. Her father pulled her close. That's my girl. They sat together watching the sun rise over a city that didn't know how close it had come to losing itself to corruption completely. Somewhere out there, Morrison was probably planning his defense, gathering allies, preparing to fight back. Somewhere out there, Lucian was beginning his new life far from everything he'd known. And here, in this anonymous apartment, Elena Vale was learning what it meant to choose the hard right over the easy wrong. Her phone buzzed, the burner Marcus had given her. A final text from an unknown number. Not everyone who fights for justice wears a badge. Some of us just do what needs to be done and disappear into the night. Thank you for finishing what my father started. Be safe, be brave, and don't look back. Elena read the message twice, then deleted it. Lucian was right. Looking back would only make the path forward harder to see. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of depositions, legal briefings, and the constant low-grade terror of waiting for Morrison's network to strike back. Elena's father was transferred to a private facility in Maryland under the name Robert Chen, a fictitious identity complete with fabricated medical records and a team of doctors who knew better than to ask questions. Elena became Sarah Mitchell, a consultant for a legal firm. Though everyone involved knew the fiction was paper-thin, the first deposition happened on a Monday morning in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Morrison's attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Ventura, who'd built her career defending corrupt officials, spent 6 hours trying to dismantle Elena's credibility. Ms. Vale, isn't it true that you accepted payment from Mr. Moretti in exchange for your cooperation? Elena kept her voice steady. I accepted a job as household staff. The salary was disclosed in my employment contract, which the FBI reviewed before I entered the estate. But you also accepted additional benefits, didn't you? Medical care for your father, for instance. After I learned that Agent Morrison had threatened my father's safety, yes, Mr. Moretti provided protection. Protection from threats you claim Agent Morrison made, but can't prove beyond a single recording that may have been edited or manipulated. Richardson cut in smoothly. We've had 3 independent audio forensics experts verify the recording's authenticity. It's unedited and admissible. Move on, Ms. Ventura. The dance continued. Ventura tried to paint Elena as a scorned operative seeking revenge. She tried to suggest Lucian had seduced or blackmailed her into cooperating. She tried to frame the entire situation as a criminal mastermind manipulating a naive girl into destroying a dedicated federal agent's career. But Elena held her ground. She'd spent too many sleepless nights preparing for this, replaying every conversation, every decision, every moment of doubt. She knew her story because it was the truth, messy and complicated as it was. By hour 4, even Ventura's confidence was showing cracks. "Let's talk about the journals," Ventura said, switching tactics. "These documents allegedly compiled by Lucian Moretti's father. How do you know they're authentic?" "I don't, personally, but the prosecutors had them verified by handwriting experts. The documents referenced in the journals were authenticated by federal investigators. Everything checks out. Or Mr. Moretti is an exceptionally skilled forger who created an elaborate fiction to justify his own criminal behavior. Then why would he disappear?" Elena leaned forward. If this was all fabricated, if he was just trying to destroy Agent Morrison out of spite, why would he give up everything and vanish? He had money, power, connections. He could have fought these charges. Instead, he handed over evidence that incriminates dozens of people, including some who had nothing to do with him, and walked away. That's not the behavior of someone running a con. Ventura's jaw tightened. Or it's the behavior of someone who knew he couldn't withstand scrutiny and chose to flee before his lies caught up to him. "Believe whatever helps you sleep at night," Elena said quietly. "I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. And I know the difference between a man trying to protect his criminal empire and a man trying to finish his father's work." The deposition ended with Ventura requesting additional time to review materials, which Richardson denied. As the lawyers packed up their files, Richardson pulled Elena aside. "You did well. Better than well, actually. Ventura is one of the best defense attorneys in the district, and you didn't give her an inch. She made it sound like I'm either stupid or corrupt, like there's no possibility I made a rational choice based on the information I had. That's her job. Doesn't mean she's succeeding." Richardson lowered her voice. "Between us, Morrison's starting to crack. His bank records don't match his story, his alibis for several meetings documented in the journals are falling apart, and 2 junior agents have come forward saying he pressured them to falsify reports. We're building an airtight case." "What about the others? The people named in the journals?" 14 have been arrested. 3 more are under investigation. A federal judge resigned yesterday rather than face questions about his financials. Richardson's expression was grim. "This is bigger than we initially realized. Your testimony opened a door, Elena, and what we're finding behind it is going to shake the entire justice system." Elena should have felt vindicated. Instead, she just felt tired. She visited her father that evening, finding him in the facility's common room playing chess with another patient. He'd lost more weight. His skin had a grayish tinge, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been in months. "You're getting good at this," the other patient, an elderly man with kind eyes, was saying. "2 more moves, and you'd have had me." "Next time," her father promised. He looked up and saw Elena. "Hey, baby, how'd it go?" "Morrison's lawyer tried to tear me apart. I'm still standing, so I guess that counts as a win." Her father excused himself from the chess game and led Elena to a quiet corner. "You look exhausted." "I am exhausted. I'm tired of lawyers, tired of questions, tired of defending choices I made when I thought I was going to die." Elena sank into a chair. "Part of me wishes I'd just stayed in that diner, kept my head down, let the world be corrupt without trying to fix it. But you didn't, and you know why." Her father sat beside her. "Because you're my daughter, and I raised you to believe that silence in the face of injustice is just another form of complicity. You did the hard thing, Elena. That's worth being tired for." "Did you ever regret it? Testifying against the Castellanos?" Her father was quiet for a long moment. "Every single day for the first 5 years. I'd lost everything, my career, my home, my identity. Your mother struggled with the constant moving, the paranoia, the knowledge that we could never truly be safe. It nearly destroyed our marriage." "I didn't know that. You were too young to see it. But yeah, there were nights I'd lie awake thinking about how different our lives would be if I'd just kept my mouth shut and looked the other way." He took her hand. "But then I'd think about the people the Castellanos hurt, the families they destroyed, the businesses they ruined, and I'd realize that my comfort wasn't worth their suffering." "How did you live with it? The fear?" "I didn't, really. I just learned to function despite it. And eventually the fear became background noise instead of a constant scream." He squeezed her hand. "You'll get there too. It just takes time." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the other patients move through their evening routines. Elena noticed the medical staff watching her father with professional concern, the way they marked notes on charts and exchanged meaningful glances. "How are you feeling?" she asked quietly. "And don't lie to me." "Tired. The pain management helps, but it's getting harder to do basic things. The doctors are talking about hospice care, maybe in a few weeks." His voice was calm, accepting. "I'm not scared of dying, baby. I'm scared of leaving you alone." Elena's throat tightened. "You're not leaving me alone. We still have time. The treatments are buying me days, maybe weeks, not months, not years." He turned to face her fully. "I need you to hear this, Elena. When I'm gone, I need you to live. Not just survive, but actually live. Build a life that matters. Find people who love you. Don't spend the rest of your days looking over your shoulder." "I don't know how to do that." "Yes, you do. You've been doing it this whole time without realizing it." He smiled. "You walked into a dangerous situation because you believed in something bigger than yourself. You made impossible choices because you trusted your moral compass. You exposed corruption because you couldn't live with staying silent. That's not survival, baby. That's living with purpose." Elena wiped at her eyes. "I wish Mom was here. She'd know what to say." "She'd say exactly what I'm saying. She'd also probably make you eat something because you look half-starved." Her father's expression turned serious. "There's something I need to tell you about your friend, Moretti." "What about him?" "Before he disappeared, he set up a trust. Medical expenses, future costs, everything needed to keep me comfortable until the end. The facility director told me this morning, it's all paid for, Elena. Every penny." Elena's breath caught. "He didn't have to do that." "No, he didn't, but he did anyway. Makes you wonder about a man everyone calls a monster who makes sure a dying stranger receives the best care possible." Her father's eyes were knowing. "You picked the right side, baby. Don't ever doubt that." The grand jury convened 3 weeks later. Elena testified for 2 days straight, walking the jurors through everything from Morrison's initial recruitment to the final confrontation at the safe house. The prosecutors presented the journals, the hard drive, the financial records. They called forensic accountants who'd traced Morrison's offshore accounts. They brought in the junior agents who'd witnessed his corruption firsthand. On the third day, the grand jury returned indictments against Robert Morrison and 17 other individuals on charges ranging from bribery and corruption to conspiracy to commit murder. The news broke like a bomb across every media outlet in the country. Elena watched the coverage from her father's room, both of them staring at the television as reporters detailed the scope of the corruption, the years of criminal activity, the lives destroyed by people sworn to uphold the law. Former FBI agent Robert Morrison was taken into custody this morning, the anchor announced, showing footage of Morrison in handcuffs being led from his home. His face was blank, but Elena saw the rage burning behind his eyes. He faces 23 federal charges, including racketeering, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. If convicted on all counts, he could face life in prison. "Good," her father said quietly. "Let him rot." But the victory felt hollow. Morrison's arrest was just the beginning of a process that would take years to fully resolve. His co-conspirators were already mounting legal defenses, claiming they'd been coerced or manipulated, that the evidence was fabricated, that this was a witch hunt orchestrated by criminals trying to destroy law enforcement from within. Richardson called Elena the next morning. "We need to talk about your security situation. Morrison made bail." Elena's blood ran cold. "How? The charges?" His attorney argued that he's not a flight risk, that he has deep community ties and no prior criminal record. The judge agreed, set bail at $5 million. Morrison's family posted it within an hour. Richardson's voice was tight with anger. "I fought it, Elena. We all did. But the system is what it is." "So he's out there, free to come after me and my father." "We've increased your protection detail. Round-the-clock surveillance, armed guards at your father's facility, a panic button linked directly to federal marshals. But I need you to be smart about this. No unnecessary risks. No deviations from your security protocols." "I understand." But understanding and accepting were different things. Elena spent the next week jumping at shadows, seeing threats in every unfamiliar face, waking from nightmares where Morrison found her father's room and made good on his threats. The attack, when it came, was nothing like she'd imagined. She was leaving the courthouse after another deposition when a man approached her in the parking garage. He was middle-aged, nondescript, the kind of person who'd disappear in a crowd. He moved casually, like he belonged there, and by the time Elena's security detail noticed him, he was already within arm's reach. "Ms. Vale, I have a message from Mr. Morrison." Elena's hand went to the panic button on her keychain, but the man held up both hands, showing he was unarmed. "Just a message, no threat. But you need to hear this." "Stand down," Elena told her security team, though every instinct screamed at her to run. "What's the message?" "Mr. Morrison wanted you to know that he holds no personal animosity toward you. You were doing what you thought was right, just as he was. He respects that, in his way." The man's voice was calm, almost soothing. "But he also wants you to understand that there are consequences for betrayal. Not for you, you're too high profile now, too protected. But for the people you care about, they're vulnerable, always will be. If anything happens to my father, your father's dying anyway. Morrison's not cruel enough to hasten the inevitable, but you have friends, Ms. Vale, former colleagues, people you went to school with, a cousin in Oregon, an aunt in Florida." The man smiled slightly. "They're not protected. They're not high profile. And if Morrison goes to prison, if he loses everything because of your testimony, well, accidents happen. Houses catch fire, cars run red lights, people disappear." Elena's security team was closing in now, but the man had already delivered his message. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd before anyone could stop him. That night, Elena sat in her apartment, a different safe house, the third in as many weeks, and tried to process the threat. Morrison wasn't coming for her directly. He was threatening everyone she'd ever cared about, banking on her conscience to make her reconsider her testimony. She called Richardson. "He's trying to break you," the prosecutor said bluntly. "Make you so terrified for everyone else that you crack under the pressure. It's psychological warfare." "It's working." "Then let it work just long enough for us to trace whoever delivered that message. We've got the parking garage footage. We'll find him, and when we do, he'll flip on Morrison for a reduced sentence. This was a mistake on Morrison's part." "How many mistakes does he get to make before someone I love ends up dead?" Richardson was quiet for a moment. "I can't promise you that won't happen. I can promise that Morrison will face consequences for it if it does. That's the best I can offer." It wasn't enough, but it was all Elena had. She visited her father the next day and found him worse than before. His breathing was labored, his skin waxy, his eyes unfocused. The doctors had moved him to palliative care, a gentle euphemism for the final waiting room. "Hey, baby," he whispered when he saw her. "You look worried." "Morrison sent someone to threaten me, said he'd go after my friends, my family, anyone I care about." Elena pulled a chair close to his bed. "I don't know what to do, Dad. I don't know how to protect everyone." Her father's hand found hers, his grip weak but steady. "You can't. That's the terrible truth about fighting people like Morrison. They'll always find leverage. They'll always find someone to hurt." He paused to catch his breath. "But here's what you can do. You can refuse to let that fear control you. You can testify. You can tell the truth. And you can trust that most people are strong enough to protect themselves. What if they're not? Then you mourn them and you keep fighting. Because the alternative is letting Morrison win, and that means everyone he's ever hurt suffers for nothing." Her father's eyes were clear now, focused. "I'm dying, Elena. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, but soon. And when I go, I need to know that you'll keep fighting. Not for me, for yourself, for the people who can't fight back." "I'm scared." "Good. Fear means you understand the stakes, but don't let it paralyze you." He squeezed her hand. "Promise me. Promise you'll see this through." "I promise." Her father died 3 days later, quietly and without drama, surrounded by doctors who'd cared for him and a daughter who'd tried to save the world to pay for his treatments. Elena sat with him for an hour after his heart stopped, holding his hand, memorizing his face, trying to reconcile the vital man he'd been with the empty shell he'd become. The funeral was small and private, just Elena, Richardson, 2 marshals posing as distant relatives, and a priest who'd been paid to ask no questions and remember no names. They buried him under his false identity, Robert Chen, in a cemetery that would never bear his real name. Standing at the grave, Elena felt something inside her crystallize into resolve. Morrison had taken enough. Her father's freedom, her mother's peace. Years of their lives spent running and hiding. He didn't get to take anything else. The trial began 6 weeks later. Morrison sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, his face composed, his manner calm. He looked like a man wrongly accused, not a corrupt agent whose crimes had destroyed dozens of lives. Elena took the stand on day 3 of testimony. Ventura immediately attacked her credibility, her motives, her relationship with Lucian. Ms. Vale, isn't it true that your father died while under Mr. Moretti's care? He died while receiving medical treatment at a facility Mr. Moretti paid for, yes. And doesn't that strike you as convenient? The one person who could verify your story about the Castellano threats is now conveniently deceased? Richardson stood. Objection. Counsel is implying the witness orchestrated her father's death, which is not only baseless but offensive. Sustained. Ms. Ventura, rephrase or move on. Ventura smiled thinly. Ms. Vale, your father's medical records show his condition deteriorated rapidly after his transfer to the private facility. Did you ever question whether that facility provided adequate care? My father received the best care available. The doctors extended his life by weeks, gave him comfort in his final days, and treated him with dignity. That's more than the hospital could promise after his insurance denied coverage. Elena's voice was steady. And since we're talking about convenience, isn't it convenient that Agent Morrison had someone visit my father at the hospital to threaten him just days before he was transferred? Isn't it convenient that Morrison had multiple opportunities to fabricate evidence against Mr. Moretti, but somehow never found anything concrete until I came along? Your Honor, Ventura started. I'll allow it, the judge said. The witness is responding to your line of questioning, Counselor. The trial continued for 3 weeks. The prosecution presented the journals, the financial records, testimony from the junior agents Morrison had corrupted. They showed wire transfers, played recorded conversations, traced money through shell companies to offshore accounts. Morrison's defense crumbled piece by piece. His alibi witnesses contradicted each other. His financial explanations grew increasingly implausible. The facade of the dedicated federal agent serving his country dissolved, revealing the calculating criminal underneath. On the final day of testimony, Richardson called her last witness, a surprise addition to the roster that she'd kept hidden until the last possible moment. The prosecution calls Marcus Novak. Elena's head snapped up. Marcus, Lucian's security chief, walked into the courtroom wearing a suit that looked deeply uncomfortable on his large frame. He took the stand and was sworn in. Mr. Novak, Richardson began, can you describe your relationship with Lucian Moretti? I was his head of security for 6 years. I managed his protection detail, vetted his staff, and handled security for his estate. And in that capacity, did you ever witness Agent Robert Morrison meeting with Mr. Moretti? No. Mr. Moretti refused to meet with Morrison, said he didn't trust him. Ventura shot to her feet. Objection! Hearsay! Goes to the defendant's character, Your Honor. Mr. Moretti's assessment of Agent Morrison's trustworthiness is relevant to the larger pattern of corruption. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Ms. Richardson. Richardson nodded. Mr. Novak, did you ever witness Agent Morrison meeting with other individuals associated with organized crime? Yes. I saw him meet with Viktor Sokolov, head of a Russian trafficking operation, on 3 separate occasions. I photographed 2 of those meetings. Richardson presented the photographs. Morrison's face went white. And did Mr. Moretti instruct you to document these meetings? No, I did it on my own initiative. Mr. Moretti's father had taught us to document corruption wherever we found it. He said someday it might matter. Marcus's voice was calm. Looks like he was right. The testimony continued. Marcus detailed meetings, payments, exchanges of information. He provided specifics that only someone present could know. And through it all, Morrison sat frozen, watching his carefully constructed defense collapse completely. The jury deliberated for 18 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous on all 23 counts. Guilty. Morrison showed no emotion as the verdicts were read. He sat perfectly still, his hands folded on the table, his face blank. But Elena saw his knuckles turn white, saw the muscle jump in his jaw, saw the moment he realized his life as he'd known it was over. Sentencing came 2 months later. The judge was thorough and merciless. Mr. Morrison, You were entrusted with upholding the law. Instead, you corrupted it for personal gain. You threatened witnesses, falsified evidence, and orchestrated operations designed to benefit your criminal associates rather than serve justice. Your actions have undermined public trust in federal law enforcement and endangered countless innocent lives. The judge looked down at Morrison with unconcealed disgust. I sentence you to 35 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. May you spend that time reflecting on the lives you destroyed and the oath you violated. Morrison was led away in handcuffs. As he passed Elena in the gallery, their eyes met. She expected rage, maybe hatred. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like respect. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Elena pushed through them without comment, Richardson at her side running interference. They made it to a waiting car and drove in silence for several blocks. It's over, Richardson said finally. Morrison's allies are pleading out. The judges are resigning. The whole network is collapsing. You did it, Elena. You actually did it. We did it. You, me, Marcus, Lucian's father. Elena stared out the window at the city passing by. It took all of us. What will you do now? Witness protection offered you a new identity, a fresh start somewhere Morrison's allies can't find you. Elena had thought about this question for weeks. I'm going to testify in the civil suits, help the victims Morrison hurt recover what they lost. And then I'm going to disappear, but on my own terms, not running, just choosing a different life. You've earned that. Richardson pulled out a folder. Before I forget, this came for you this morning. No return address, but it passed our security screening. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a short handwritten note. You kept your promise. Thank you for finishing what my father started. The world is a little more just because you had the courage to stand up. Live well. Don't look back. And know that somewhere, someone is grateful you exist. A friend. Elena folded the note carefully and tucked it into her pocket. Lucian had kept his promise too, disappeared completely, started over somewhere far from the corruption and violence that had defined his life. She hoped he'd found peace. She hoped he'd built something better than what he'd left behind. 6 months later, Elena stood on a beach she'd never seen before, in a town whose name she was still learning to pronounce. She'd sold everything, taken the trust fund Lucian had established for her father's care, and used it to start a nonprofit organization that helped victims of corruption navigate the legal system and rebuild their lives. The work was hard and often heartbreaking, but it mattered. Every person she helped was proof that justice, however imperfect and delayed, was still possible. She'd made peace with her choices, with trusting Lucian, with exposing Morrison, with choosing the hard path over the easy one. She'd learned that morality wasn't about following rules. It was about understanding when the rules were broken and having the courage to fix them. Her father's grave was 2,000 miles away, marked with a false name in a cemetery she'd probably never visit again. But she carried him with her anyway, in the lessons he'd taught and the example he'd set. He'd shown her that standing up to corruption required sacrifice. He'd also shown her that the sacrifice was worth it. Sometimes, late at night, Elena wondered about Lucian, where he'd gone, what name he used now, whether he thought about those chaotic weeks when their lives had intersected. She hoped he was happy. She hoped he'd found redemption for the crimes he'd committed in service of exposing greater crimes. The truth was complicated. Lucian had been a criminal. There was no denying that. But he'd also been the son of a man who'd died trying to document corruption, and he'd finished that work at great personal cost. Morrison had been a federal agent sworn to uphold the law, but he'd been more corrupt than most of the criminals he'd supposedly investigated. In the end, Elena had learned that the badges people wore mattered less than the choices they made. Justice wasn't about which side you started on. It was about which side you chose when the moment came to act. She'd chosen truth. She'd chosen exposure. She'd chosen to trust a man everyone called a monster and expose a man everyone called a hero. And she'd learned that sometimes the monster is just someone fighting back against a corrupt system, and sometimes the hero is the real villain all along. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Elena watched it sink toward the horizon and thought about her father, about Lucian, about all the people who'd fought for justice in ways the world would never fully understand or appreciate. She'd survived. She'd exposed corruption. She'd made a difference. And now, finally, she was learning to live. The tide rolled in. washing away footprints in the sand, erasing evidence of who'd walked there before. Elena turned and walked back toward town, toward the small office where tomorrow she'd help another person whose life had been destroyed by corruption, toward a future built on hard choices and harder truths. Behind her, the ocean kept moving, indifferent to human concerns about justice and morality and the price of doing what's right. But Elena had learned that indifference was its own kind of freedom. The ocean didn't judge her choices. It just existed, constant and eternal, proof that some things endured no matter what. She'd endured too. Broken and rebuilt, scared but standing, carrying scars that would never fully heal, but had taught her what she was capable of surviving. That was enough. It had to be enough. And somewhere, in a town whose name she'd never know, a man who'd once been called Lucian Moretti was learning the same lesson, that survival wasn't the same as living, but it was a necessary first step. That redemption wasn't about erasing the past, but about building a future that honored the people who'd sacrificed everything for justice. They'd both survived the fire that had burned away everything familiar. Now they were both learning what it meant to build something new from the ashes. The world kept turning. Corruption would rise again, because it always did. But so would people willing to fight it. People like Elena's father, like Lucian's father, like Elena herself. The fight was never truly over, but that didn't mean it wasn't worth fighting. Elena walked into her office building and climbed the stairs to the second floor. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new victims, new battles against a system that protected the powerful and crushed the vulnerable. But tonight, she allowed herself to simply exist. To remember those she'd lost and those who'd helped her survive. To acknowledge the fear and the courage, the mistakes and the victories, the complicated truth of who she'd become. She wasn't perfect. She'd never be perfect. But she was trying every single day to make choices that mattered. And in a world drowning in corruption and compromise, that simple act of trying was its own form of revolution.